Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, it's Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. Today, I have the pleasure of having Tasha Smith. Tasha is the founder of Emerge Sales Training, a business coach, speaker, and author with over 19 years of experience in sales and leadership. She has dedicated her life to helping others. Her powerful vision is that every person who needs to be able to sell, provide for their families will have access to high quality training that brings them the results they have been ready for. Over the past 4 years, she and her team has trained and coached over 8,000 network marketing clients to create thriving teams and businesses full of confidence and profit. One of Tasha's clients describes it best when she said, Tasha is a huge heart, and she and her team are pulling for every client and every step of the way. And I love that. I love when we lead with heart. Tasha, welcome. And thanks for joining me here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
So, not for nothing, as we're doing this interview that's going to be aired in a few weeks ahead, we've had an interesting year in 2020. We were connected a while ago early on. And we're doing this interview that we're over 6 months into a global pandemic. We have, you're out in Southern California. You have been dealing with fall fires. Mm-hmm. I've spent my last few years out in the LA area in November. And I know there's usually fires around November, but it's not usually like beforehand. And you guys have just been inundated with one thing after another. So thanks for taking the time out of an interesting time in life to share and chat with us.
Well, I would rather be here with you than thinking about those things, that's for sure.
So, you say that you've been, in business, as in leadership and development for 19 years. Give me like the short story of of what your journey has been and how you came to to join me here today.
Okay, so I went to college at UC San Diego. It was in between my junior and senior year. I was pre-law, and in that summer, I got a job selling knives. And I fell in love with sales, and interestingly, actually the training component. When I saw young people, their confidence increasing, them feeling in control of their destiny, their communication skills improving, that's when I said I devote my life to sales training. Isn't that crazy? And so I graduated from college. I ran my office. So I spent my early 20s teaching 18-year-old kids how to sell $1,000 sets of knives.
I know the company you're referring to, and I have a few of their knives. They are awesome.
They're close. I'm sure you live by the headquarters, Olean, New York.
Not that far.
And then I worked in corporate America for the next however many years. And about 5 years ago, so I've always sold, trained people how to sell, or been a sales manager. That's my entire, from Cutco to the education industry. And then my kids were 3 and 5. And I was driving an hour and 15 minutes to and from work. There were some structural changes at work. So they took my department away, reassigned me, basically took my baby. I was looking at a salary cap. I was already maxed out my pay. And I thought, I can make a bigger impact.
I'm going to jump in here for a second, because any person who has cut their teeth in sales and built a career on sales, the worst thing you could ever do is give a salesperson a salary cap, because it deflates their motivation.
Yeah, it was a federal guideline. The federal government came in and regulated the education industry.
Yeah.
Which was okay. I didn't mind the salary cap as much as the fact that I was 35 and had I had mastered my role and there was nowhere else to go with that. And so I only knew how to do one thing, and that was teach non-salespeople how to sell things. So I put up a little podcast, started tinkering around. My friend who sold essential oils invited me to a little essential oil class. I responded, I will come to your class if you listen to my podcast. 3 episodes in, she decided to hire me. So I coached her on Monday evenings on my, well, it's a new couch now. I've upgraded my couch, but on a rinky-dink old jacked up couch in my office. And she went from making $50 a month for 2 years to $450. Her sponsor hired me, their sponsor hired me, quit my job. And since then we have sold $3.7 million in sales and coaching services and trainings. And that's how we got here today. In February, I wrote a book called Customer First, and part of just, right, what we're trying to do to grow and get in front of people is to work with amazing people like you who share our values. Really of like, I just think women can do so much once they believe in themselves and they learn the skills. And that's how we got to this particular conversation.
So, when you, what I'll refer to as hang out that shingle, it's like all of a sudden you're going to be in business for yourself. It always, from the outside in, it looks so easy. It looks like, oh, well, she just did this. It's easy for her. It's so natural. Talk to me a little bit more about the realness. the truth under the story of, oh yeah, you just kind of like, oh, the clients just showed up and it was easy for Tasha because she had all this experience in sales, so she didn't have a problem. True?
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact that I was a sales trainer was helpful because I was able to write my own outlines. But here's what's really funny is I still had to take the time to write my own outlines. Even my outreach messages this was something new I was doing. So I had to rewrite everything from scratch. I think that the hardest, what was good about what I did is that I did have a very clear understanding that I was supposed to help entrepreneurs, not corporations, entrepreneurs who had a dream, who were very, very smart in what they were smart in, but didn't have experience. Like, I knew that. And so I think that was one thing that I had going for me. When I started my business, I took models that I learned, but then when I quit my job, that was a different thing, right? Tinkering around with a few friends is very different than when I quit my job, which was a Fortune 500 sales manager position. So not like, it was a good job.
Right. So it's, when they talk about replacing that salary, and there's this concept of replacing the salary and then the reality of running a business and actually seeing it as a business and realizing, well, I can replace the 6-figure salary, but I forgot there's all those other business things you need to do. Like, you need to have some help. You need to pay your taxes. You need to pay for rent. You need to pay for, X, Y, and Z. So how did you, originally go from those first few clients to quitting your job to actually scaling?
Sure. So, well, first thing, just with like the replacing of the income, I didn't go in with that mindset. So
tell me more.
Yeah. So what we have done is I knew probably a year and a half before I quit my job that the writing was on the wall for advancement opportunities. And so when I started looking for sales manager jobs, I noticed you have to start from the beginning. So we had already prepared. So we were like, okay, we need to start saving money for whatever move I would probably have to take steps down to step back up. So we actually knew that when I quit my job that year, I only needed to make $24,000 for us to maintain. Now, we weren't going to be contributing to 401k. right? Obviously kids daycare would be shifted because they would go part-time instead of full-time daycare. There were all these factors that were involved. I didn't have to pay tolls in Southern California, like all this stuff.
That's a big deal in California driving.
Oh, I mean, it cost me $30 a day to drive to work. So like we knew all of that. So one of the really smart things we did is instead of trying to replace income, we saved so I didn't need to replace income for enough time to give the business space to breathe. When I started coaching, what we did is we followed a client creation model, which is like complimentary coaching calls and just hustle, right? And so what I was really good at was creating, right, a good coaching because I had a lot of experience, but then I was really, really good at referral generation from my knife selling days. So I just booked as many complimentary coaching calls as possible. And one of the wisest thing I did in April of that year is I hired my business coach. Because I was not interested in the school of hard knocks, I figured I could pay for that and bypass some of it, which I did. So I scaled my coaching practice. I filled that up in 6 weeks, and then we moved to group coaching model.
Right.
And so
that's the next when scaling a coaching business, that's your next step in scaling.
Yep. So one-on-one first, then the group coaching. And we had really mastered the idea of the free training for leaders in the network marketing industry. So I would give them a free training. It would be a win. They got the hero credibility, and then their team members, they got free training, and then they wanted them to move forward. So we grew really fast. The word of mouth really took off. And then the scaling was incredibly hard because I didn't realize that I had some unicornish tendencies that weren't so easily duplicated. Even when we hired really amazing corporate sales managers, because I did have the direct sales background, there were things I knew intuitively that were really, really difficult to teach. And we grew so fast. So that first year we did 80 grand. Next year we did over $1 million. And it was just through this like webinar group coaching, we just got amazing results for people. So the word of mouth was crazy. What was really hard about this,
and I actually want to chime in for a second here before you go there. You also were really, really smart that you niched down into a very, very specific industry.
Yes.
That the industry gave you a plethora, a huge pipeline once you became known in that industry of referral ability.
Yes.
And that's brilliant, and I want you to own that.
Well, I would own it, except I think some of it happened upon me. I think right? Because I was going to help like CPAs or IT people is what I thought, to sell their services. But very quickly, what the smart thing is as soon as I figured out this is where I was supposed to be, we do lots of target market research. And I don't think coaches do enough of it, often enough.
Let's talk about that. What target market research? Because one of my biggest things is market research. So share a little bit of target market research of what you're referring to. And I agree with you. Not enough coaches, not enough, tons of industry do not do market research. So please go.
So I didn't know anything, and I came as an industry outsider. So I had one question: what's hard for you? And to this day, we ask that at the beginning of every single webinar. Even though like our signature webinar I've run 300 times, my business partner probably another 100, we always stop and say, what's hard for you when it comes to sales, making sales, selling, closing? One of the first target market was just like going and talking to as many network marketers as we knew. Ask them what are their goals, what motivates them, what's hard for them, and that's it. And listen, not with an agenda, but to really, really listen so that we can craft offerings that directly met their needs. So when we started asking people what's hard for you, they kept saying my team was like, I don't know how to teach my team how to sell. And we're like, oh, well, is it helpful if we just run this training for you? Like, we'll just do it and it's a win-win. And that's how that became. It was not like let me go into my mad scientist lab and craft up this brilliant strategy. It was a friend who called me and said, oh crap, I have a team meeting tomorrow. Can you give me a few tips for closing that I can share? And I said, would you like me to just do it instead? right? And looking for how can I provide value to my target market has opened up so many areas of opportunity. But we do a fresh set of target market research every year. We just finished a new round with our top paying clients, and we do like, okay, tell me about your background, like your demographic info. Tell me, what are your goals? What's hard for you? What motivates you? And we just keep running that cycle to make sure we shift our product offerings accordingly. And so we're talking to them about what they care about.
Love that. And it's so true. If you find out, and you're actually always in touch with your target market, with your marketplace, as you're referring as your target market, which is 100% sales 101, and I love that. I call it my marketplace because that's just an ID thing.
Right. That's better. That's better. I'm going to use that. Can I use that?
I could share. I haven't quite trademarked marketplace, and it comes from just a favorite food place that used to be called the Marketplace, and I love their food. And I was like, oh, it's like the Marketplace. You have to know your marketplace. One thing that you just said that really resonated with me is you just finished doing this research again, because due to this pandemic that's going on, we have shifts in our marketplace or shifts in our target market. And we need, as leaders, as business owners, we need to know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So what have you seen in business with your clients during this time?
Well, I see that most of our clients are juggling their family and their businesses. And so the heightened level, it's like I call it the endless summer. So in the network marketing industry, the whole industry sort of takes a little bit of a dip over the summer as kids are home on summer vacation. And so the workforce kind of simmers down and then turns back up in the fall after conventions. And now we're in an endless summer. Yeah. Where the kids are always home. And so anxiety levels are higher, which when we're under stress, we fall back to previous patterns.
Well said, and I want to repeat that. I want you to say that again, because I think most people don't realize this.
Oh, sure. When we're in times of stress, we fall back to previous habits. And if our habits were not established well pre-pandemic, right, we're going to fall back to what our pre-pandemic habits were. And so that's why you see people that were already high structure, high routine. They're doing well-ish in this time because in stress, they fell back to structure and discipline. Yep. Where people that, like what I noticed is people that struggled with time management, it was exponential. People that were great at time management, crushed.
That too was exponential.
Yeah, it was exponential in a different way. We did really well this past half until my blood pressure kind of threw a monkey wrench in the past 6 weeks. So we did really well because we knew target market research, right? So March 13th hit, and the first thing I did was ask all my clients, my one-on-one clients, what's hard for you right now? And so we moved.
You went back to habit. You went back to structure. You went back to form.
Yeah, which is the question in my work, the number one question I need to ask as much as possible is what's hard for you right now? Because that's how my job is to help you to find a way out. So, right, as that hit, it was, okay, what's hard for you? What's hard for you? We quickly opened up our membership for free for 3 weeks with no credit card. We went to every single one-on-one client and we said how to sell without being salesy during a pandemic. And we did free webinars for everybody. And the goodwill that we were able to do in that 3 weeks, I think really it solidified my entire one-on-one coaching practice because they knew I loved them. And from like just a generosity, and we had a lot of people stay in the group and upgrade, right? We had a great conversion rate because we were like, you're hurting, we can help and we can support you. And your clients were
seeing the results of the investment that they were making into their businesses and you were making in them. in your belief, and you holding that space for belief that they can grow now, they can, and we're here to help. And there's something to be said to hold the in holding the space for others to grow and step into as a coach.
Yeah. And I just think it's so important that we we focus on our habits, because that creates a foundation for any hard thing that we're going to be able to do. I was a college basketball player. There's a reason we do the same stinking footwork exercise every day for 6 years. It's because at the end of the game, when you're in a space of stress, it's your feet that are going to help you make the shot, right? It's what habit do you have? And as entrepreneurs, there's the allure of what it could be, right? Working from the laptop in the wherever, but in times of hardship, right, we fall back to our previous patterns. And I take that seriously for myself and for my clients as well. What habits are we establishing?
And I think it's a very important conversation. I feel my background as a dancer, what does every class start with the same exercises? Because when your head goes somewhere else, your body knows what to do.
That's right.
If your head goes into the game, your body is on habit. And I truly think, for me, habits is one of the principles I teach in great leadership, is a good structure, good structured habits. So at this point in the journey, what tips, strategy, and advice do you see for other leaders who are growing organizations?
I think that it's really important to remember what people want from a leader. What does the research say? So Gallup has done extensive research on what people want in a leader, and it's this: trust, compassion, stability, and hope. And so instead of trying to figure out, right, what's the new technique or what's the shiny new leadership thing going, to remember that our foundation is in providing trust, compassion, stability, and hope, and holding space for people, that people will remember how you treated them in hard times, not how you treated them in good times. And we need to remember that our job as a leader is to meet each individual or even our entire audience with that intention. And one of the things that I'm looking at now is realizing people feel like they're not connected. Most people, excuse me, I don't want to use a word like everyone, but most people feel disconnected. And so for me, that means probably being more frequent about doing impromptu Facebook Lives that are real, and here's what's actually going on. Like, let's be connected, and taking that time to do that. In leadership, we don't get time off right now. This is what, as leaders, these times are what we were born for. This is what we've worked for our whole life, is to step into this space. And maybe this is terrible to say, but now's not the time, right? Now is the time to show up and ask ourselves, how can I be an encouragement to the people in front of me? Because when we're worried and we are anxious, the fastest way to move out of that is to encourage someone else.
It's so true. And I think as leaders, every leader right now has the ability, because we are leaders, and just so, to get clear in where I'm coming from, I believe everybody is a leader. And the more we have the ability to step up and own our leadership role and make an impact on every person around us. Mm-hmm. And one thing I'm loving what you're saying is listening well, having, asking the questions, shush, and listen to what people say, and then give them how we can help. I think that is so important, and now more than ever. So share a little bit, Tasha, of what you see coming down the pike for you and your organization. what is the 2020 into 2021 look like in your niche market of network marketing?
That is a great question. That is not one I've been asked, so thank you. What I realized for myself and for my business partners, that we, part of our leadership, we use StrengthsFinder through Gallup. So we're high individualization people. And a lot of people in the industry have been like, you got to sell lots of things at very low prices and all that. But at the end of the day, we want to know everybody's name. We want to know everybody's dream. We want to know, right? We want them to be able to have an SOS. And so we're moving really to a higher touch model for people that consider them, they're entrepreneurial minded. Most of our people have like professional backgrounds. And so they identify with a more cerebral approach to business. And so what we are focusing on are masterminds that are deep dives into topics for mastery, and then like ongoing coaching where they can just get my eyes on their business, which I think is something that a lot of people crave. So we're really looking forward to scaling those areas and really getting back to what we are good at. Like, we're going to focus a lot on our online sales system, but everything going toward just let's have a conversation, because I believe we're different in the industry in that we are both full-time coaches, right? Most of the industry is like they run maybe their network marketing business, but they run their little training business as an autopilot thing.
Got it.
That's actually not what I want to do. I want to be on Zoom with people all day long. So we're pretty excited. We did, when we were doing our target market research, I said, well, what do you think about this whole thing? She's like, well, I've never seen anything like it, so I don't have context. And she saw it as like, oh, bummer. And I was like, perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping someone would say, is they've never seen anything like that. So we're really excited about masterminds that allow us to know our people. That's important to me.
So if you could share one tip with our listeners today of moving through the end of 2020 into 2021 as leaders, what is the one tip or piece of advice you would share forward?
I'm going to share with you what my coach taught me, the first thing she taught me, and that is to keep an impact journal. We are going to go on a roller coaster for reals, and impact comes before income. And so the practice that I would recommend is to every day write down 3 humans you positively impacted. And if you have more, great. And to keep that, because we have a tendency to forget what we should remember and remember what we should forget. And when we have hard times, we need to cling to the evidence that we are impactful, not the evidence that we are not.
I love that. Tasha, how can our listeners know more about you and Emerge?
Well, probably the best thing to do is I wrote a book in February, and people tell me it's pretty good. So you can go to customerfirstbook.com. Download a free copy, or we can ship one out to you. That's probably the best way to learn more about our work. You can also just email me directly at tasha@emergesalestraining.com. I'm sure you'll have all the links from my bio and everything there.
All your links are below. Listeners, never panic, never worry about spelling. Just look below. Every link is there. The important piece today is to stay connected, to reach out, to take these tips, strategies, and implement. It's not just about the listening, it's about the implementation forward, and may we all grow from the inside and continue to grow our leadership and as well as our organizations on the outside from there.
Well said. Perfect.
Listeners, thanks for tuning into Her Success Story today. Please remember to leave comments below. I would love to see what your biggest takeaway is from Tasha and I's conversation today, what you're going to implement, and what else you want. We are here to serve. Please hit subscribe, and more new episodes will be in your inbox on your podcast app every Monday morning. Again, thanks for joining us at Her Success Story.
Don't need your approval anymore, 'cause I've got mine.